Hello everyone, welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. This is our weekly show that we do every Wednesday at 11 Central, where we stream live and talk about SharePoint, Office 365, and business solutions. So business solutions are things that are not a bunch of programming, you're not writing code, and you're not hardcore server admins. It's just all those other topics that fall in between. And so this is like our 68th episode, I think. So there are lots and lots of different topics in SharePoint that we're able to cover, covering a wide span. And today our demo is going to be Excel Web Access, something else fancy that you can do with the Excel Web Access Webpart. We've had one or two power hours in the past where we talked about Excel services, but there's just so much you can do with it. We're going to do another one. So I actually just wrote a blog post and posted that about the thing that I'm about to demo. And we're going to go through and introduce ourselves, but real quick, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a way that you can click the little yellow link on the YouTube video that will take you to the Google Hangout. And in the Google Hangout, you have a couple of little panels that you can look at. So by default, I think it shows a little panel on the right that's got what's called the showcase, and that shows like links that we've shared in there, but then it's got some little squares at the top right you can click on, and that lets you switch between apps. So if you switch over to the Q&A app, that's how you can communicate with us and just say hi, say hey, happy Wednesday, or ask us questions as we go. So that's sort of the fun part. That's why we do this live, so that we can have it be interactive and have you ask questions as we go and just interact with us and each other. So again, I'm Laura Rogers, SharePoint MVP, and this is my team at Rackspace. We do SharePoint hosting and SharePoint consulting, SharePoint training, and I'm going to get everyone in the room to go across and introduce themselves. Let's see, Kevin, then Ryan, then Joelle, then Stephen, and then we'll do the demo.
Hi, I'm Kevin Hughes, SharePoint architect here at Rackspace, based out of Kansas City. And I've been with Rackspace not a very long time, but I've been working with SharePoint for a great number of years, since 2007. Microsoft Solutions delivery since 1995, so been around for a bit. My role here is to gather requirements, figure out our clients' needs, and come up with the solutions to deliver the answers to all their ills.
All right, Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Keller. I am the branding guy on the team here at Rackspace. My job is to basically make SharePoint look a little less SharePointy and a little more like what the customer wants it to look like. Been working with SharePoint also since 2007, and I am based out of Colorado.
Okay, Joelle.
Hi, I am Joelle Farley. I am a SharePoint consultant also on the Business Solutions team. I am based out of Atlanta. I've worked with SharePoint since SharePoint 2007 was released, and I mainly focus a lot on out-of-the-box solutions as well as planning and design, so things like information architecture, search, metadata, all that good stuff. Looking forward to the session.
All righty.
Hi, I'm Stephen Wilson. I am also a member of the Business Solutions team. I do a lot of our installations and troubleshooting on the administrative side, as well as helping out users sort of get started when they first get into SharePoint, making sure that they don't make some of the really big mistakes that we've seen people make in the past when we just sort of threw them into the deep water without any sort of guidance.
Awesome. All right, Tanya, you didn't know it, but you're next. Do you have your audio on?
I just unmuted myself. Tanya Kaiser here. I'm a new member to Laura's team and fairly new user to SharePoint. So I've been using SharePoint for a little over 2 years. I'm the SharePoint admin for our internal SharePoint farm here at Rackspace. So I primarily work with end users and their help requests, everything from, what kind of SharePoint site do I need? How do I get this list working? How do I edit a page? It runs, the gamut from never used SharePoint before to trying to do very advanced features that we're not going to allow on our internal farm. I also maintain the farm. We're working through some legacy migrations and then just some general, maintenance and governance on the farm and all that entails.
Awesome. I'm going to have to put you on the spot one of these days and get you to do like a SharePoint adoption and helping end users session or something like that.
Best
Awesome.
recommended practices are always a big topic.
Yeah. Okay, so the demo today, I shared the link to it in the little showcase app there in the Google Hangout, and the demo today is Excel Web Access Webpart and something else cool you can do with it. So as we've probably seen in the past, and I know if you might have seen one that Joelle did, a Power Hour she did, you can use the Excel Web Access Webpart to display a spreadsheet on a page in SharePoint. And that is for people who have the enterprise version. This has been around since SharePoint 2007, so 2007, 2010, 2013, and even Office 365. As long as you have the enterprise version, you can do the thing that we're going to demo today. So this pretty much spans just about anybody who could possibly be watching can do this. So, except if you get SharePoint 2003, and then, I feel sorry for you. Okay. All right, so I'm going to, let me get in here and share my desktop. Find that. Every time I do it, I lose the link. All right, there it is. Okay, so, all right, I think you can see it now, right? My spreadsheet. Anyone? Yes? You're nodding? Okay, cool. All right, so this is what I'm going to show you how to do. This is a page that I created in SharePoint with a library full of spreadsheets, and basically the list of spreadsheets is on the right, and as you click between the list of spreadsheets is on the left, and as you click between each one, it changes the web part on the right to show that spreadsheet that you clicked on. So this is an example for a customer where they had people putting all these spreadsheets in SharePoint, and they needed to just be able to quickly flip through them. Now, as a consultant and as someone who likes to use the best practices for everything I try to do in SharePoint, my first inclination was to say, okay, where is this data coming from? Is there a more efficient way to do this than to have it in a bunch of separate spreadsheets? Should we use SSRS or some other BI product? Or, all these things were going through my head about different ways we could do something with this data in SharePoint. But we went ahead and just, we're working with the end users, and we're working with what they have. And at this point, we're not going to try and retrain them to do anything. So we're just going to make use of what we have and just get that to work in SharePoint. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this, and then I'm going to show you a bonus. So I've got another I logged in as myself on this other VM. So I've got 3 VMs running. Let's see. I've got my domain controller, my SharePoint server, and then this other one. So what I did on this one is the same concept, except I added something to it. I made it so that whoever the logged in person is, I put a pivot table in the same spreadsheet. And so it defaults to like all products. And not only can they flip between the different named ranges in here, like here's a chart in here, but I created this pivot table, and it automatically looks at whoever the logged in user is on this page and sends that filter information to my data in the spreadsheet. So I've got a column in my spreadsheet called salesperson. So this is like a sales report. So it's like the product, the salesperson, the customer, and then some numbers. So and again, so that's something that you can use, another fancy way that you can use the Excel Web Access and Webpart connections to be able to pass that filter information of who the logged in user is, so they can see stuff that's specific to them. So this is only for me as I go to the spreadsheet. Another thing that you can do, and that I'll show you, is you could have the same spreadsheet, this Webpart, in different places on the page so that they don't have to flip between the views, so that maybe they can see them all. But I'll go ahead and show you how to do the Webpart connections, and then we'll talk about different ways this can be accomplished. And don't forget to ask questions as you go. So can you guys see my screen? Because it says you are screen sharing, and then it's got a button that says stop, and it's got a button that says present to everyone. So that looks like it's something new in the screen sharing. Okay, I just went ahead and clicked present to everyone. Hopefully everybody, somebody in the chat window, can you guys shout it out and say that you can see my screen? Hopefully you can. I'm just going to keep going because I know there's kind of a delay. But all right, it says I'm screen sharing and presenting to everyone. So here we go. All right, so I'm going to create a new page. So and I like Webpart pages as opposed to wiki pages or publishing pages, just because they are less buggy. So the quickest way that you can just go create a Webpart page, you don't, you can have a whole separate library to keep those in, but if you want to, you can just go to your little out-of-the-box Site Pages library, and in the File tab up here, you can click New Document and just choose Webpart page. So I'm going to do, let's see, Sales Demo Dashboard 3. Okay, and it even asked me what library. Thanks, Jack. Thanks for the feedback. It even asked me what library I want to put it in as I'm going, so that I can pick a different place. Sometimes I'll create a library called Dashboards, and I'll put them all in there or something like that. All right, so now I've got my Webpart page. So I click Add a Webpart on the left. And then this is where I'm going to put my spreadsheets. Okay, so this is the document library that I called it Spreadsheets, and I just put spreadsheets in it, but you can call your document library whatever you want to. All right. Okay, someone gave me some feedback that when I click Present to Everyone, it basically covers up all you guys at the bottom, so it like fills up the whole screen. So that's probably a good thing, right? Y'all can pick your noses or do whatever you want to do now. It doesn't matter. Nobody can see you. Okay, so I went ahead and add the spreadsheet document library to the Webpart page, and this is pretty basic stuff so far. And of course, you could, as you see fit, you could go change this view. Edit the view to show whatever columns you want to show there. All right, so now I'm going to use this middle column to show my Excel Web Access Webpart. So I'm going to go to my Business Data category over here and choose Excel Web Access. Click Add. All right, so now it's saying select a workbook. So what I would normally do is go open the tool pane and go pick what specific workbook I want to show. But I don't need to do that in this case. All I need to do is create the Webpart connection. So I click this little drop-down box at the top right corner of the Webpart, and I choose Connections, and I choose Get Workbook URL From. So then, whatever I called my document library, mine just happens to be called Spreadsheets, that's the one you click on. All right, so what field in my document library is going to give me the URL that I can pass to that other Webpart? So I have to pick it. So I have to choose Document URL. So Document URL, that's the magic one. That's the one that's going to say whatever you click on, it's going to send that URL to the Excel Web Access Webpart. So watch this. Oh, magic. All right, so now I go and hit Stop Editing. And now there's also a little just default functionality in the Excel Web Access Webpart that sends the name of whatever your item is to be the title of the Webpart. So now, even as I click through each one of these using this little double black arrow, it even changes the title of the Webpart to that thing. So, and you can see in here, I've got a chart in the spreadsheet, and I let people switch between it. All right, done. All right, let's see, 14 minutes. No, I'm kidding. So I'm going to go ahead and just add on a couple of things to this, and I'm going to show you, go back over to my server, and I'm going to show you some fancy stuff in Excel that I did, because a lot of the times when I demo this, it's more of, just supposed to be a SharePoint demo. I don't get too much into the Excel advanced stuff, but I've got plenty of time. So I've got here my 4 spreadsheets. I already opened them up on the, just on this computer. And so this first one is the one that I added the pivot table to. I didn't do the pivot table on the other ones yet because I wanted to show you guys how to do it. Okay, so this table is where all my data is. So what you can do in Excel is when you select an entire range, and I put my cursor in somewhere in this table and do Control-Shift-8, and that selects my table for me, and I don't have to like scroll down to the bottom and find where the bottom is and all that stuff. So that's a little just quick trick for you guys to select your table. And then I used to be an Excel geek. I love Excel. I used to work in it all the time at some point years ago. Probably all of you have at some point, if you're a computer nerd like me. And then I go ahead, and if I want to name something, all I have to do is once I select that range, I just go in this box up here and I just type what I want it to be called. That's the named range box. So I could literally go like type monkeys and 2 or something like this, and I could select those and I call it monkey range. So now I have a named range. So now when I go select monkey range, it selects those cells. So that's how you name a range. So that's how I named this table. And then this chart has a name as well. Sales data is what I called the chart. See? All right, so that's another named thing in Excel. All right, so that's how I named those two things. And then I'm going to go delete this, get rid of this monkeys thing that I did. Okay, so that's how you name things. And then when you are putting something in SharePoint, and Joelle demoed this in her other Power Hour that we did. I don't know, Joelle, can you put the link in the little Showcase app straight to those other Power Hours that have that? So I'm going to go to the little backstage view here in Excel and choose Browser View Options. So this is where I can choose, say, when people are viewing my data in the browser, in the Excel Web Access Webpart pretty much, what do I want to allow them to see? So by default it says entire workbook, but I like to go in here and choose items in the workbook, and so I can be more specific about what I want them to be able to see, and that's what's going to show up in that little drop-down box at the top right corner of the Webpart. So that's how you do that, and as soon as you've done this, and when you save it to SharePoint, then that's all you have to do to make those things available in the Excel Web Access Webpart. Those will automatically be available in the little drop-down in the Webpart. So real quick, let me show you where that setting is so you can control that if you want to. So maybe I don't want them to be able to flip between the items in here. I only want it to show sales data and not the all products view. You can go edit my page, and so first of all you can make that range, you can uncheck the box in Excel and make it not available in browser view. But another thing you can do is you can say, I think it's called like sales data. Keep in mind that all 4 of these spreadsheets have the exact same named ranges, the exact same, like pretty much everything's the same about them except the actual data that's in those rows, okay? My option in here though is the named item drop-down list. So I can uncheck that if I don't want people to be able to switch between the named things in the Webpart. See, so now that drop-down box is gone. So I literally could put one Webpart with sales data, another Webpart with the table, you know, range, and another Webpart with a pivot table or something, all of the same spreadsheet on the same page if I wanted to. Okay, so I didn't. So I took the drop-down box away. I'm gonna go ahead and put it back. And put the checkbox back there. There we go. And I think that since I chose sales data as the default little, you know, named item, that little named item in the Webpart properties, that's just, you just have to remember what you named it in the spreadsheet, because it's not going to, the Webpart is not going to give you a drop-down box of what all your named items are when you're putting that value in the Webpart. So I just had to know what it was to type sales data in there. But now I think when I flip between them all, it should just show the sales data one by default for all of them, since I put that as the Webpart setting. Let's see what it does. No, it's not doing that. So that's fine. It's just basically pulling up the first one, the default, just the first one in the list up here as I flip between the spreadsheets. And since even though I put that in the Webpart properties, it's not something that it's remembering as I go across. Good to know. All right, so now I'll show you how to do the little fancy parameter to pass the, you can not only pass somebody's name in here, but it can be like a department name. Maybe you have a department column, departmental, data in your spreadsheet, or you have department or an office location or a city or state, anything like that that's going to be a profile property that SharePoint knows about that currently logged in user. You can pass that information using the current user filter into the Excel Web Access web part. So I'll go ahead, I already did this in the Q1 one, I added this pivot. I'll go ahead and do it in the Q2 spreadsheet, do the same thing. So I'm going to go to my Insert tab and choose Pivot Table. And then I'm going to say I want my range to be this whole table here. That. Okay. All I had to do was type all products apparently. And then I'm going to say new worksheet. So it's going to add a new worksheet. So let me drag that over there. And I'm going to call it pivot. I think that's what I called it in the other one. And then I have my information that I want to show in the pivot table. I'll put like the products and the 4 quarters. And then here's what I can do. I can take this salesperson, that was a column in my data, and drag it over to this filters. So now look at that. So that's where I can get my salesperson drop down. So I can go pick Joelle. Oh, Joelle, you did awesome. You sold like $292 worth. Just kidding. So there's Ryan. Don't laugh so hard. Let's see how you did. Just kidding. So I have all you guys' names in here, but this is my little fake people and my little fake VM stuff. All right, so that's how I can create a field that will have whatever value is just happens to be a name. Again, it can be a department or a city or state, whatever. But that's the value that I'm going to be passing from the current user filter web part to this Excel Web Access web part to automatically show the logged in user their stuff by default. So what I can do is when I go to the Backstage view again, I go to Browser View Options. Here's where my Parameters tab is. So what happens when I click the Add button? There are no defined names in this workbook that can be used as parameters. To set the parameters, you must name single cells that contain values in the worksheet. So I need to have a single cell that contains a value that I can use to where that value in that one cell is going to be passed to it. So that's why I have to go make this one cell a parameter. I have to go see what I called it in the other one because I want to go try and make it have the same name here. Sales param. So I'm going to call it my sales param. So I'm going to just click on this cell right here. All I have to do is instead of it being V1, sales param. Enter. Now look at that. Now wherever I am in the spreadsheet, I click sales param up here, and that takes me, and now I have a cell, a single cell that's going to be my parameter where I'm going to pass that information to it. So I'll put it back to everybody here. Okay. So now when I go File and I go Browser View Options, I have in Parameters, when I click to add it, it automatically sees that's the only option it gives me to pick from because that's the only named range that's a single cell in my spreadsheet. Makes sense so far? Anybody have questions? I love it when you guys ask me questions. You have 20 of you out that are there that are very quiet. Okay, so if you don't have a question, just like say hello, shout out, say I love Excel or something, just so I know you guys are out there. Okay, so here's my sales parameter. I click OK, and this spreadsheet it exists in SharePoint. And I can see right here that where it is. It's in the marketing site in my spreadsheets library. So all I really do is hit save, and now that saved my changes up to SharePoint. So I can go do the same thing over here in my Q3 and Q4. So now if you didn't catch what I was doing before, I'll go ahead and go through those steps again. I'm going to select my range. I don't know if my little Control-Shift-8 now. That little shortcut doesn't work when you're trying to select a range from within this little dialog box. Okay, select my range, all products. I'm just going to type all products for the next one. I'm going to try to remember to do that. New worksheet, and I'm going to call it pivot. Hey, thanks, Deborah. Thanks for your feedback. Appreciate it. All right, and then again, I'm going to, and depends on what you want to see in your pivot table. It's totally up to you. So you can make it display the salesperson in there if you want. And I'm just going to put the product and then the 4 quarters. And again, the salesperson, I'm putting the filter. So that puts that little drop-down box up there. Then I click on that box and call it sales param. Oops. And then I browser view options, parameters. Oops, I want to make sure it's going to show my new pivot table too. You got to remember to do that. So let me go ahead and add my parameter real quick, and then I'll make sure that I'm putting my pivot table in all these so that I can make sure that it's displayed. So pivot table 4 is what it's called. Let me see, what did I call it in the first one, because I think I gave it a prettier name than that. I call it sales pivot. So I'm going to go back to my Q2 spreadsheet, and how do I name a pivot table? So that's actually easier than it is for the chart. See, I just go to my little pivot table tools up here, and then pivot table name. So sales pivot. There you go. And then, so now it's got a pretty name. So this is something, if you're going to be doing this, you're probably going to want to do this once for one spreadsheet and have that be the same template that they use every quarter, every month, or whenever they're creating the spreadsheet, right? Like, you're not going to want to have to go through 100 spreadsheets and do all this stuff that I'm doing. You're going to want to have all that stuff exist and have the right names and everything already, right? So I can show you how to do that as well. Sales pivot, so now that one's got the right name. And then make sure I put the parameter in this one. Yep, I did that. Okay, and save it. And then Q4, pivot time, insert, pivot table. Okay, so all products. New worksheet. I love troubleshooting in a live demo. It's so much fun. Pivot. All right, and then again, product. 1, 2, 3, 4, and salesperson is a filter. And sales param. Sales param, that's what I called it. Okay, now go to my browser view options and make sure, gotta give my pivot table the same pretty name that I gave all the other ones. So instead of pivot table 6, sales pivot. Okay. And then browser view options, and now that's available. So I could just go double check through. I need to save it. I could probably I probably want to go double check through all those and make sure that I selected that. There we go. I didn't select it on that one. All right, we're good. Now, all right, so now how do we do the current user filter thing? So this is my little sales. Let me go back to my my new dashboard that I created. Make sure I pick that one. So I'm going to go to my site pages, and this is my sales demo dashboard 3. This is the one that I just created for you guys. So right now I'm logged in a system account though over in this is on my server. I'm going to go back. When I put the current user filter on here, I want it to have some useful information in it because there is no account. There's no salesperson called system account, so it wouldn't show me accurate information. So I'm going to go do this as logged in as me over in this other one. All right, so make sure I go to the right dashboard page. Oh, and if I want to take my sales demo dashboard page and put it in the quick launch real quick, watch this. I can hit edit links and just take the title of it and drag it right here and hit save. So that's just a quick way to take whatever dashboard you've created and stick it over there as a link. All right, and hit edit page. So what I'm going to use for this is called the current user filter web part, and I've got a lot of blog posts I've written over the years about the filter web parts that came out in SharePoint 2007, and they're super useful. So the current user filter is going to pass the information about the currently logged in user. By default, it has just like domain/username, as what the value that it's storing. But what I can do is I can go pick some other field about that logged in person. I'm going to pick the name, and the name is going to be the first name, last name, and that's the one that I'm going to, that's the way the data is formatted in the salesperson column in the spreadsheet. So the names are going to have to be typed the exact same way in the spreadsheet that they happen to be typed in Active Directory with the first name, last name. So I've seen like people type like Bob versus Robert and stuff like that, and then it not work. So that's one sort of caveat to this. So I'm going to send my filter value to my Excel Web Access Webpart, and then it's going to ask me what parameter do I want. Actually, let me not send it. Let me receive it, because when I do receive the connection, it gives me more options. Get values for multiple parameters from, and then I'm just going to pick it that way. For some reason, when you're creating Webpart connections, you get sort of different options depending on if you start from the which Webpart, the one that's consuming or sending the data. So now it automatically shows me that sales parameter is the only parameter that I have in that spreadsheet, so it's going to send the current user to the Excel Web Access Webpart. And look at that. Okay, so let me go ahead and stop editing. All right, so this all products view does not have anything about the, it doesn't have my pivot table that looks at the currently logged in user, but I can go to sales pivot and look at that. So now it's got me showing in here, and if I wanted to, I could go change it to somebody else. And then when I go to Q2, I can go over to, see, I didn't remember in the browser view options, and I was trying to remember to make sure to check the boxes next to all of them. In the Q2 one, I didn't remember to check the box next to sales pivot, so it's not showing as an option in here. So let's go to the Q3 one. And double check that. Sales pivot, there it is. And so now it's showing my Laura Rogers. So that other one, the Q1, I had spent a little time making it kind of pretty. And I made it so, it had some pretty colors on it in my little sort of pivot table design that I had in Excel. So there's my sales pivot, so it looks nice and pretty. Another thing I can do is, how do I know if I'm going to use the current user filter? How do I know exactly what it's spitting out? What in the world is going on in that web part? Because you can't really see. Like, I just happen to know that the name field has got the first name, last name. But I'm going to show you how you can go about testing this current user filter web part, and I wrote a separate blog post about this also. Test it to see what it's spitting out. So I'm just going to go remove this connection where I'm sending it to the Excel Web Access Webpart and show you how you can just straight up just test it to see what is coming out of it. So I'm going to go add another Webpart called the, and I think the blog post I wrote was called Testing the Current User Filter Webpart. So I'm going to use the Text Filter Webpart. Now, a lot of these blog posts I wrote about this are really old, but they, it's all still applicable. It's still in there. All right, so you make your text filter web part, get default values from the current user filter. That way, whatever is in the current user filter, that's what I'm going to see in the text filter web part. So that's how I know that the name field is Laura Rogers. So I'll go change this to something else. Go edit my current user filter web part, and instead of name, I'm going to put department. Like this, and click OK. All right, so now I have to refresh it for it to send this new data to the web part. So I'm just going to go refresh the page. And now look at that. I can see that information technology that's the way the department is going to come across. So I'm going to show you another kind of just fun thing with using the department and the text filter. And this is completely unrelated to the Excel Web Access Webpart, but since I have this on this page, I want to show you. So what I did was I created a promoted links list. So the promoted links list is this in 2013 in Office 365. It's this little list of links that you can create that's got just, you know, it's dynamic, it's got a title, it's got a little description, and it's got the place where you can put what pictures are associated with it. So here's what I did. In my promoted links list, site contents, there, yeah, they're just right in front of me. Okay. Okay, so here's our promoted links list, and I know that I think, you know, we did a whole power hour, right, Kevin, about promoted links, and Kevin showed us how you can do all kinds of fancy stuff with it to make it show a certain way. So I'm not going to get into too much, but I want to show you what I added to this, which is going to add to this whole dashboard concept of showing someone stuff that's specific to them. So what I did was I actually added a new column to this. This is just a list of links. So let me go ahead and modify this view. And I called it Contoso Department. So this is where I just typed the name. So whenever I create a new promoted link, I have them put what department that link is going to be targeted to, like that. So, and the syntax that I'm using is the same syntax that we use in Active Directory. So instead of IT or whatever and versus information technology, you know, it has to match. So the Contoso Department is a column in my promoted links list. So what I can do is pass the information about the current user to the promoted links list. So I want to go on this page. Deborah says, Laura, are we using Webparts utilizing current user filters? Do you ever experience performance issues? Performance issues? No. I mean, I guess that would depend on if you have like a large quantity of data. But I do experience when I'm working with a wiki page, I find that those filter Webparts seem to disappear randomly. So that's the so Deborah, yeah, I don't know about performance issues, but I know that they do randomly disappear off a wiki page. And like this, I know this is it right here over on the right, this obscure little line. So that's why I hate wiki pages, because a little stuff like this to where it just kind of randomly disappears. But I would go and do the developer dashboard thing if you're having performance issues on a Webpart page, so you can really dig in and see which Webpart is causing the problems. And developer dashboard is something that you have to use use PowerShell to be able to turn on, and it gives you like an extra little button at the top right to be able to show like this extra pane at the bottom. And when a Webpart page loads, it actually has all this data in it about how long each Webpart took to load and stuff like that. So that might be something you might want to try to look to dig into performance issues on a Webpart page. Hopefully that'll help. So if I see, I know I put the current user filter Webpart on the stupid wiki page, I can hit edit Webpart on some other Webpart, and then all of a sudden, look at that, there it is. So what I'm doing is I'm sending the, in my current user filter Webpart, I picked department as the field, and I'm sending that as a filter. So this promoted links list is getting the filter value from the current user filter. And the policies list is getting the filter value from the current user filter. So it's basically all these other Webparts are getting that information from the current user filter. I could also put, let's go back to my dashboard concept. I plan on doing a whole other power hour about these filter Webparts. So I don't want to get, spend too much time on that. But let me go back over to my marketing site where I did these other, sales dashboard. So what you could do is you could actually put a couple of different current user filter Webparts on the page if you wanted to pass different information to different Webparts. So I could have the name of the person being passed to this Webpart over here, and then if I have another spreadsheet or another little view of the same spreadsheet, I could have in another Webpart and have another current user filter passing the person's name or department. So I can put multiple ones of these on the page, and like one of them has a department, one of them has their name, one of them has their boss's name, or just all kinds of different stuff like that. So let's see, any other questions about all this fun stuff that I did in Excel? in all these spreadsheets and how to make, you know, the ranges or the views or the Webpart connections or anything like that, or how you would use this in the real world. Is anybody getting ideas? Hopefully you are getting ideas about maybe how, what you could do. So if I click the name on it, it actually opened the whole spreadsheet. I didn't want to do that. Any guys in the room, have you dealt with clients that asked for this type of thing, or you see people using spreadsheets a lot in SharePoint? Tanya, do you see, I'm pointing you out. I'm going to go ahead and put my, stop sharing my screen for a minute so we can chat about this. Stop. Okay. I think you can see my face now. All right. So Tanya, you deal a lot with our end users in Rackspace and them, you know, each having little business solutions they're trying to accomplish, and, you know, seeing what kind of files they're putting in SharePoint and things like that. So do you see this as something that maybe people have asked for, or that could be useful for any particular departments you've seen?
Yes, a lot of our users use Excel because that's what they were using before. So they haven't, you know, revamped a lot of their internal forms and processes specifically for SharePoint. So they're just working with the same Excel document. Even getting them to use stuff inside the web apps is sometimes a challenge because it's just not, you know, second nature to them. The concept of not having to download and edit a document and re-upload it is brand new, even in 2015. So having some of these, you know, more advanced capabilities in Excel inside the browser would definitely be useful to them.
Awesome. We have a question. Josh, let's see, says, general question about Excel Web Access Webpart. It seems like any workbook data you update in Excel, it automatically updates, but the pivot table doesn't update unless you manually refresh all from the data tab in Excel. Have you seen this before? Oh, I wish Tavis was here because he would probably be a better one to answer that. Tavis, we actually did a whole other power hour about having data in the Excel Web Access Webpart refresh and how to configure all that, and where. So I don't remember off the top of my head. It was some pretty complicated stuff he had to do in the spreadsheet, in the connections portion in the spreadsheet, to be able to set that up. He had to do some special things in here. He even had to do some special things like with the secure store and the account that's authenticated and all kinds of stuff like that. So it was on the data tab, though, with the connections button in the spreadsheet. But I don't remember that off the. That's odd that it would do that only for those. But I don't remember off the top of my head why would it do that to the pivot table and not the other stuff. I'm sorry. Okay, so if you guys don't have any questions right now, I'm going to go ahead and demo the other portion that I mentioned, is just using this in the real world, and the concept that people are going to want to be able to quickly put their, you know, January data in the spreadsheet and not have to do all those little reconfigurations and things. They just want to be able to save it as January spreadsheet and save it to SharePoint and not have to do a bunch of work to create the, you know, the ranges and all that every single month. So I'll go ahead and demo that part. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let's see, screen one. Stacy has a question. In 2010, when you have an active connection and there's no data, it displays an ugly error. Is there a way to have it default to something when there's no data and the user doesn't see an error and thinks SharePoint is broken? It was doing that to me a minute ago when I was testing it, and it would say, you know, basically system account doesn't exist in there. So I think that Stacy, I don't know a way of changing to not display an error, but all I can think of is try to account for having all the data correct, or having some kind of replacement data if there isn't a value in some field, like having some kind of other default value, like instead of salesperson being blank, have the word none in there, or little things like that. But it would depend on what exactly the data is and which place it's coming from to be able to figure out just kind of some solution. But there isn't really a way to configure the error to be prettier. Let me double check that in the little Webpart properties, but pretty much the Webpart properties for this is just letting you know kind of what buttons and things you want to give people and available to them. One thing you can do though is if you don't want it to display the default, like the very first thing in the Excel Web Access web part, when, you know, as soon as you load your spreadsheets, it's going to, by default, however you have this sorted, it's going to show the first thing in here is going to be the connection that it sends. If you don't want to do that, you have a little checkbox in your, good grief, I never remember where this checkbox is. Da-da-da. Send Webpart connection to, where'd it go? Send first row to connected Webparts when page loads. So you can uncheck that if you wanted to, if you don't want it to show whatever that first thing is, or you can make sure that the first thing that it shows, Stacy, is a spreadsheet that you know has all the correct information in it, like however you sort it, have like January is the first one maybe, and make sure that January is always going to be correct. So at least when they hit the page, that first thing that gets passed to the web part is going to have the correct information. So what happens when I uncheck that box and then go, let's see, I'll go click done here and reload the page. How does that work? So it shows me a report, but you can see none of these are actually connected and showing information. So in the Webpart properties itself, I can set it to point to a specific file as the default setting in the Webpart, and then it's not going to send a spreadsheet over there. It's just going to have just in the Webpart settings, whatever I pick, that's the one that it's going to show there. Does that help, Stacy? Just let me know. But what I was going to show you with this whole template concept is I'm just going to do File, New, and this is just basically a content type thing. So this is where my spreadsheet would exist. So product, salesperson, customer, Q1, Q2, blah, blah, blah. And then I would have my little chart over here, and then I would have my pivot table on the other tab. I would go ahead and name all my ranges and just not have maybe one row in here to just show them where to put their product information. But this could be your template. So hopefully I can just save this to my desktop. Sales template. Sales. All right, and then this is where you're going to use a content type. So I've got my template, and then I've got to create a content type. So what I want to happen is every time somebody clicks to create a new file in this library, I want it to be using that template so that they don't have to get some maybe older version that might be on their computer or feel like they have to start all over or whatever. So that's where I can go into my, we've got 6 minutes, my content types, and I know that we've done other power hours about content types. You guys probably already know this stuff, but I'll call it sales spreadsheet. This is, I know it's not a document, it's a spreadsheet, but document content type is like the generic for just like any office files that you're creating. So I create the content type, and then my advanced settings, I go get that template that I had just created on my desktop, and I upload that in here. You could let it point to an existing template, just directly to the URL of it if you wanted to. But I'm just uploading it into my content type, and then from then on, in my library, so I have my library called Spreadsheets. I'm going to go to my library settings and advanced settings. So I have to turn on the ability to manage content types. Click OK. And then I'm going to add from existing site content types, and this is going to be my spreadsheet that I just created. And now, and I can even change this button so it doesn't show that other one anymore. And now when people go to my library to start filling out a new whatever their monthly spreadsheet is, now it pulls up that template that I already created, so I don't have to, again, all the work is done with the parameters and the named ranges and all that stuff, and all they have to do is fill it in or paste in the data or whatever they're doing. Okay, Stacy says she'll try that. She has a project that's connected to a pivot chart for a status of amount invoiced to date. When there hasn't been anything invoiced, there's no data in the pivot chart and displays the error rather than a blank chart. I'd have to... Yeah, you'd have to maybe have zeros in there by default or something like that to maybe so that it at least have a value. That's all I can think of. Cool. Well, thanks. Any other question? I'll go stop my sharing my screen again. Okay. Anybody else out there have any questions? If not, again, every single Wednesday at 11 Central, we have SharePoint Power Hour. And any announcements you guys can think of? Oh, we have SB TechCon coming up. That's the SharePoint Technology Conference. This time it's going to be in Austin, Texas, which will be a lot of fun. That's a new venue for them. And that's going to be February 8th through 13th. 8 through 11th, something like that. Yeah, 8th through 11th. And I will be there, and several of my coworkers will be there. And it's going to be a lot of fun. April, there's a conference called the Evolutions Conference in London. They're actually having a contest to get a new speaker or two, I think, where they're going to pick from entries as to just kind of whoever wants to try and be a speaker there. I'm going to be there, though. It's going to be in London in April. SharePoint Evolutions Conference. And then in May is the big Microsoft Ignite conference where they took the SharePoint conference and Exchange and Link and all the different product conferences, Office 365 and everything, and crammed it together into one conference. And that's going to be like May 4th through 8th, I believe. So those are my little announcements. One more little comment from the gallery here. Frank says he just got a site request today that they can utilize for updating a shared Excel document, among other things, so he'll be able to utilize this demo right away. That makes me so excited. Awesome, Frank. I'm glad you have fun with that too. So that's the one thing I love about this demo is that it applies to pretty much everybody because you can do as long as you have the enterprise version. Awesome. Thanks, Deborah. Cool. Okay, well, I will let you go. Again, I won't be here next week because I'll be teaching my online SharePoint Power User training class all week long, sharepoint.rackspace.com/training. And so I think Joelle's doing the demo next week, but I'll be back the week after that. And everybody have a good week. Bye.